It wasn't pretty, but we'll take it. The Celtics are over 500. I'll have that. Plus, why guys like Jordan Walsh got no leeway to have a game like he had tonight. It's all right now on the Locked On Celtics podcast.
Beantown, be ever ready. It's the C's. Who else could it be? What they gon' say now? Screaming like JT, Karalis. Recap the madness every game, every practice. Primetime dapping D White on the sideline. Raining J's, how it started, raising banners, how we finished. Locked On Celtics pod, home of the winners.
Hey, welcome back to the Locked On Celtics podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Your team is the Boston Celtics, and I talk about them Monday through Friday right here on the number one sports podcast network on the planet. Thank you, everydayers, people who are with me every Monday through Friday, for making that possible. This show's free. It's available everywhere. It's on YouTube. Get into the comment section there. Share your thoughts with me, John Karalis, beat writer for Boston Sports Journal. I've been covering this team for 20 years, doing this podcast for 10, and I've written a couple of books about the team as well. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. New customers, you bet $5, you get $300 in bonus bets when that first bet wins. Use those across the app at FanDuel.com to get started. The Celtics win in Brooklyn, 113-99, a 14-point win. Seems like, 14, that's good. That's good. But it was 90 apiece about halfway through the fourth quarter, and then they finally broke it open. Later on, I'll get to Jordan Walsh, who just got into foul trouble. Some of it was his fault. Some of it was tough calls. But I'll get into why he has like zero leeway. And I'm very curious to see what happens next with Jordan, because who knows? Who knows? It's been such a fluid situation. We'll get into that. Second segment, we'll get into some of the individual performances. Definitely getting to Jaylen Brown, who didn't have a great game, but also the numbers show that he might have. But this is one of the eye tests tells you one thing, the numbers might tell you another. So it's an interesting discussion about Jaylen Brown. Let's just start at the top, though, here with this was an ugly win. The Celtics turned the ball over 20 times. They average 11 over the course of the season. It's such an interesting, weird fact right now that the two worst turnover games that they've had were in New York and in Brooklyn. So something about being in New York City has caused them to have slippery hands. I don't know what it is, but these weren't your just, a tough, tough whistle. Like a lot of times when you get 20 turnovers, you can factor in like, okay, they tried to play fast. Maybe they pushed the ball a little too much. There were like one or two of those where like at the end in the fourth quarter, Jaylen just threw it over somebody's head. Those aggressive turnovers that in that situation wasn't the best, but you tend to live with those because you're trying to be aggressive and push the ball. Those are okay. You don't want too many of those, but those are okay. Sometimes you stack up some turnovers with, there was that one game where Garza had like 3 offensive fouls, which go down as turnovers. And, you get a ref that's like a stickler for leaning on, an offensive foul. And sometimes that happens and you have a 20 turnover game, but it's really, 17 minus a couple of the aggressive ones. It's not so bad. But these were mostly bad. These were like just ball falling out of somebody's hands or being ripped out of somebody's hands, or passes that I was wondering, did someone spike the Gatorade? Like they were playing drunk out there for a little while. Like I think like we're all going to assign our own reasoning for this stuff. So, maybe the Celtics felt like Brooklyn, they're 2-11. They play hard, but they're not great. We can come in here and just do our thing and whatever. I don't know if that was that, or if they were just bothered by tall, athletic, kind of aggressive defending kind of, trapping to some degree. It wasn't at all trapping, but it was, a little bit of blitzing. It was a little bit more aggressive defense than they're used to seeing. So maybe that was part of it. But the Celtics came in and it looked like they, a lot of the drives with the heads down and like, oh, somebody's in my way, I'm just going to pass it to where I think a guy should be. and the pass gets picked off, a lot of times when you drive, you're like, okay, you get your head up, you can at least read. Guys like Jaylen Brown have the ability they look past that first guy defending them. They're reading the second guy, and they're looking at that third level of defense to figure out where that help is coming from. Where is somebody tagging? The roll man is there, all of these little things like, okay, I'm going to wait this extra tick to wait till this guy commits, and I'm going to go the other way with it. And you find guys in the corner, you find guys rolling down the middle, and so on and so forth. When Jaylen or the playmakers are at their best, you see those things. This is them at their worst, where I don't think they were seeing that second, third level, at least the third level. So gross, ugly kind of thing. And the Celtics were down double digits in this game. If it wasn't for Payton Pritchard at the beginning of the game, the first quarter, keeping them in it, and if it wasn't for Jaylen in the third quarter, finally getting something together, 17 points in the third quarter to make up for the gross. I mean, Jaylen was making up for his own mistakes, with a lot of these turnovers. If it wasn't for, some of those performances, you wouldn't have gotten to that middle of the fourth quarter with the game tied. The Celtics would have had to try a big comeback. So, but look, sometimes you just ain't got it. And you got to figure out a way. At the beginning of the third quarter, when they came out and they were still turning the ball over, like Jaylen traveled, and as soon as it was like 90 seconds into the third quarter, I said, okay, this is not going away. They didn't come out with like reckless abandon. They didn't go into the half and, Joe Mazzulla did the Three Stooges smack across everybody's face and woke them up. And then they went out there in the third quarter and blew Brooklyn out. No, they came out in the third quarter and were still stumbling over themselves. And it was clear at that point. I was like, all right, this is going to be an ugly game. This is going to be an ugly win if you just got to figure out a way. And we can bemoan the turnovers, which I have been doing for 5 minutes now. You can bemoan the sloppy play and just be like, it's a little disappointing after some of the play where they figured things out. But at that point, you're like, okay, some nights you just don't have it. You just don't have it. If anybody's played organized basketball, we've all gone through situations where you're like, I don't know. I just walked into the arena. Everything was fine. I walked into the arena and I went out there to play basketball and I'm brain fog. I don't know what happened. And you get waxed and you just deal with it. And coach yells at you and you move on. That happens. But the Celtics had their brain fog. Luckily, they had their brain fog against a Brooklyn team. And maybe because it was a Brooklyn team that contributed to it. But that's not a good basketball team. That's a team that's trying to lose. It's a team that's, they won a couple of games. And, I'm listening to the Locked On Nets podcast and they're like, oh, people are losing their minds. Why do we win these games? They don't want to win games in Brooklyn. So both teams are happy with the result, but, both Locked On podcasts are celebrating today, but you got to find a way to win that. And they did. Right. They snapped out of it. The defense stepped up in the second half and they are now above 500. The Celtics are 8-7, the first time above 500 this season, which nice little, an important kind of place to be because you now have Brooklyn again on Friday, Orlando on Sunday. Orlando is kind of like a mess a little bit here. So Celtics have a win and a loss against Orlando. And again, here's, before Thanksgiving, they'll face another team in the East for the third time. They've already played Philly 3 times to get Orlando now for the third time. But, okay, 8-7. Can you beat Brooklyn again, get to 9-7? Can you beat Orlando and get to 10-7? That would be really, really important because after that, it's Detroit at home. Detroit is hot. Minnesota is good. Cleveland is good. You got those two teams on a back-to-back Saturday. In Minnesota, Sunday in Cleveland. That's, it's not the worst travel in the world, but it's still a back-to-back against two good teams. So that's a tough 3-game stretch. Then you come home and play New York. That's a 4-game stretch. And then Washington, okay. And then the Lakers on a back-to-back. So you got a condensed schedule there. And then you finish it off with Toronto before you get into the NBA Cup knockout craziness. And who knows what that schedule is going to be. So the Celtics have the potential to go. This is 3 in a row. So you can go 4, 5 in a row before look, would anybody be surprised if it's a loss against Detroit, Minnesota, Cleveland, New York? There's 4 potential losses. Do you lose all 4? Do you sneak a win in there or 2? Split that. I'd be so thrilled. But that could be a tough stretch. So if you can get up to 9-7, 10-7 before that stretch, and you come out of that stretch somewhere if you can come out of that stretch above 500, great. But point is, there are tough games coming up. This was an important win to figure out. And now maybe you can stack them up and get a 4 or 5 game winning streak together. Get that 5 game winning streak together. That'd be really, really nice. And then that makes that tough part of the schedule a little easier to manage. Basically, what I'm saying is win the games you're supposed to win. So if you can manage to steal one against a good team, like you did already once against Cleveland, if you can manage to steal one against a good team, then that puts you in a much better position. All right, let's get into individuals. When we come back, Derrick White's defense in the second half was incredible. The Celtics defense in the second half, especially the fourth quarter, was good. Pritchard was at the head of that snake. We'll get to him. We'll get to Payton Pritchard's role. We'll get into Jaylen Brown. All of that is coming up next. Today's show is brought to you by Skims. When Skims announced they were making underwear for men, reaction made perfect sense. People have been talking about Skims comfort for years. My wife especially, she's a big Skims consumer. Most guys, though, we stick to whatever we've been buying since college. Whatever is coming in the biggest pack for the cheapest price is generally what we settle for. But Skims men's changes that. It's one upgrade, and it's obvious why everybody has been talking. I have tried Skims men's underwear. I got the hype immediately. We are grown up. We are adults. We do not have to go to budget stores or bulk box stores for our underwear. We can buy the stuff that feels good, that's designed to fit right and actually stay put. No slipping, no sagging, no adjusting. Just genuinely great underwear that makes you feel confident and comfortable. My favorite pair is the Stretch 5 Boxer Brief. It stands out because it fits. It stays put. When I go to the gym, it feels comfortable. There is no adjusting. There's none of that stuff. So whether you're at work, whether you're traveling, whether you're working out, or just hanging out at home, these feel better than anything that you have worn before. I didn't expect underwear to be a game changer, but Skims completely surprised me. Shop Skims Men's now at skims.com. When you place your order, choose podcast in the post-purchase survey and select our show from the drop-down menu. That's how they know we sent you. Please support the show that way. Plus, the Skims Holiday Shop is open, so if you're looking for the perfect gift this season, Skims has you covered. Today's show is also brought to you by FanDuel. New customers, you bet $5. If your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets. Right now, NBA is hot, NFL is hot. No better place to get in the action than FanDuel. Even if you miss the start of the game, or maybe you want to ride a hot hand, FanDuel has the live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, can combine everything into a same game parlay that gives you a shot at a bigger payout. Keeps every game exciting, especially when your team is making that late push like the Celtics did in Brooklyn to close that thing out. Right now, FanDuel is giving you, a new customer, $300 in bonus bets for that first $5 bet if it wins. So head on over to FanDuel.com and sign up. When you sign up and log in, it will ask you to set a budget. Please do that. Whatever your disposable income is, whatever you can afford to lose, that's the number that you should enter. This way, you're gambling responsibly. And if you do have a cold streak, then FanDuel will stop you. We'll come back. We'll pick it up later, and it'll be fun. So check it out at FanDuel.com, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thank you for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day, the number one Celtics podcast in the world on the number one sports podcast network in the world. Make your second listen Locked On NBA Game Night, which covers every night in the association. I'm supposed to be on Tuesday nights heading into Wednesday. Because the Celtics played, I'm doing Wednesday night heading into Thursday. So I'm on. Check us out. We cover every game. Locked On NBA in the afternoons covers all the big stories, debate show style. So both are on the same feed. We'll get into now the individual performances. I got to start with Derrick White's defense, which I think was just off the charts in the second half. A nice game for Derrick White. Not, you make one more shot and the numbers look a little bit different shooting wise, but still not where we want to be shooting wise for Derrick White, who shot 6 of 15, 3 of 10 from 3. But you go 4 of 10 from 3 and you're 7 for 15, you're in a decent place. So 15 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks. So 4 stocks, 4 turnovers for Derrick White, who was a plus 15. And the second half numbers, he was just everywhere. The chase down steals, the chase down block, the block on Michael Porter Jr. at the end of a shot clock where he was like, I was waiting for him to shoot the half court shot, and then he stepped in, so I just made a play. It's when he had a turnover and then came down immediately and just kind of Marcus Smarted his way to get an offensive foul on Nick Claxton. And the guys in the broadcast were like, that is just incredible championship level awareness and defense. And it is Derrick White's defense in the second half was part of a big turnaround, because in the second half, the Celtics forced 9 turnovers and had 7, versus the first half where they were just awful. They had 12 and they only forced 4. And then the defense in the fourth quarter was incredible. It was even better. The Celtics had 3 turnovers in the fourth. They forced 6, and they really were able to get out there and run off of those turnovers. Now, overall, the Celtics turnovers, they gave up 21 points. But in the fourth quarter, the Celtics had 10 points off turnovers, only gave up 2. So they really flipped that. And I think Derrick White was at the real, just head of that defensive effort. You also had Payton Pritchard, whose role just continues. He 22 points, 10 rebounds. So after the win against the Clippers, he was like, yeah, I didn't get the rebounds that I probably should have. And he clearly focused on that, because 22 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists for him. He shot 5 of 12 from 3. So the 3-point shooting at just about 42% was there. 6 of 16 shooting overall. He struggled from inside the line, but he got to the free throw line 5 times, and plus 11 for Pritchard, who, again, in the first quarter was huge. He had 11 points in the first quarter to kind of keep the Celtics afloat, and struggled in the second half with his shot, but did the other things, rebounded, made the passes, and all of that. So Payton Pritchard's role continues. Now we get to Jaylen Brown, who watching that game, I'm thinking he just didn't have a great game. But the numbers, 29 points, he had 4 assists, a steal, 3 rebounds. The 8 turnovers really just stand out. The 8 turnovers were awful. And this is why I think Jaylen had a bad game, because the 8 turnovers were just killer, gross, ugly turnovers. It was not going well for him. But 9 of 19 is 47%. 3 of 7 from 3 is 43%. 8 of 10 from the line. And like I was saying with Derrick White, you hit one more 3, all of a sudden you're 4 of 7 and you're 10 of 19. And now the numbers are like, oh, wow, 50, 40, 80% of the line. You can look at the turnovers and say, well, he had 8 turnovers and that's not great, but 29 points on, the efficiency is kind of there. But watching that game, the eye test and the number test don't square up with me. But the third quarter, he was huge. And the Celtics needed everything from the third quarter. They scored 27 in the third, and he had 17 of those. And they still had bad turnovers. And he had 3. He had 3 of Boston's 4 turnovers in the third. So this is probably why I think I was like, this wasn't the best game for Jaylen, because even as he was like doing all that stuff, I'm like, okay, this is great. And he got to the line 7 times. He was working so hard to score. And it looked like he looked tired in the third quarter. He looked worn out. I was thinking like, man, I mean, I'm not in his head, and I'm sure he was anxious to prove that he can lead a team. But I'm sure at this point he's also thinking like, okay, when can Jayson come back? Because I would gladly stand in the corner for a couple of these possessions and watch someone else isolate instead of having to do all of this stuff. So, but in the end, I think the best compliment I can pay Jaylen is when you have 29 points, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists, and I sit there and be like, it wasn't the best game for him. That tells you how good he's been all season long and how good he actually is. Because most players would kill for 29, 4, and 4 and be like, yeah, the turnovers weren't great, but I'll take 29, 4, and 4 all the time. And you can go ahead and pretend I had a bad game. Jaylen said he played like crap in the first half. He figured it out a little bit in the second half. And that is all fair. But it's one of those weird games where the box score says one thing, the eye test says something else. And when you're as good as Jaylen Brown, to have a 29, 4, and 4 bad game is actually pretty amazing. So, take that for what it's worth. Jordan Walsh, a couple of things I didn't like. I'll get into that, including Jordan Walsh sitting with foul trouble, and he has 0 leeway. Jaylen has all the leeway. Jordan has none of it. We'll talk about that when I come back. Today's show is brought to you by Rippling. You own a business, and you know that you need to be confident in the apps that you use. SaaS promised to make work easier, but now the average company is buried by hundreds of apps that slow down your teams. And that's not SaaS. That's SAD, because these apps don't work together. SAD is software as a service, but you need Rippling to fix that. It's a unified platform for global HR, payroll, IT, and finance, all in one place. Who wants to do all of this stuff? You don't. That's why Rippling has got it all in one place, and they've helped millions of businesses replace a mess of disconnected tools with one system designed to give leaders clarity, speed, and control. Rippling removes bottlenecks, removes busy work, and that helps your team run efficiently. We're just talking about efficiency with the Celtics. Rippling does the same thing. They do everything from onboarding to payroll to IT access. It runs automatically and perfectly in sync. It's simple to use, and it gives companies one source of truth for the people, data, and everything they touch. Whether you want to run your entire HR, IT, and finance operations as one, or just fill the gaps in your software stack, Rippling can do it all. Right now, you get 6 months free when you go to rippling.com/LockedOnNBA. That's RIPPLING.com. Rippling.com/LockedOnNBA. Rippling.com/LockedOnNBA for 6 months free. Thank you for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Go check out Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Josh Lloyd's got you covered for the entire whatever you need all season long. Ads, drops. He's dropping multiple podcasts a day. He's got you covered. Everything fantasy. If you want to win your league, you got to listen to Josh Lloyd, the number one fantasy basketball podcast on the number one sports podcasting network on the planet. Let's get into some of the things I didn't like from this game, some of the other things I didn't like from this game, which Luka Garza, I don't think this was his best game either. I think a young athletic team kind of like maybe not the best matchup for him. It was funny. The Celtics threw him 2 lobs. I was like, why would anybody throw Luka Garza a lob? He's not athletic enough to go up and get those. And he didn't go get those. So I think that kind of shows the Celtics like where their heads were at. Just know who's on the floor with you. I understand that maybe in that situation you're like, oh, here's this. I'm seeing this. I got to throw a lob to the big. Well, that's not your lob catcher. Nemi's your lob catcher. Go, Luka needs something else. I'd rather you shoot the ball in that situation and miss and do like the Kobe assist because Luka can go up there and get the offensive rebound. Other thing I didn't like is no Hugo Gonzalez. Like, what? This is your team is lacking energy or lacking focus. How about having this guy out there to kind of match up against their crazy athletic young players and let's see where it goes. I don't know. I've been making a whole big thing about like sending Ugo to Maine for a game here and there to get him some run. I asked the Celtics about that and they were like, nah, he doesn't need it. And then he doesn't play the next 2 games. Like, well, what's he doing? You know what I mean? So he could have played on that Friday night in Maine, given him 30 something minutes, go out there, play, get, spread your wings a little bit, just have some fun, go play a whole basketball game instead of being DNP'd for a couple of games. I don't know. It's confusing as hell to me. Just quick shout outs. I should mention Josh Minott, because of Jordan Walsh's early foul trouble. Minott comes in and went 3 for 3 from deep, finished for 10 points. He's basically like Minott and Walsh are like the same kind of player. So if one guy's not coming in, the other guy can come in and interchangeable in a lot of ways. Anthony Simons, nice bounce back, 11 points off the bench. Sam Hauser hit 2 3-pointers for the first time since November 1st, which was the loss to Houston. But the steal, which started that whole run, technically it was 90-89 and there was a free throw. But so Sam Hauser's steal was part of an 8-0 run. That was part of an overall extended 18-3 run. But Hauser started the whole thing with that steal. That was the actual turning point in this game. So shout out to Sam for that. Now, Jordan Walsh was, in foul trouble. He hit early on. There was nothing that was going to tell me early in the game that made me think like, oh God, dude, he doesn't have it today. In fact, there was a great play early where Neemias Queta had the ball on the left block and made a move, made a really nice pass to Walsh in the corner. Walsh drove towards the middle and then made a really nice individual move. Maybe the best individual move I've seen him make to get to the rim. It was really good, but then he got into foul trouble and had to sit. And then in beginning of the third quarter, he got into 90 seconds in, he gets another foul and has to sit. And then he doesn't play the rest of basically the rest of the game. He doesn't come back in until 18 seconds left. So Joe benched him and didn't even think like fourth quarter in that run, didn't think, hey, let's bring Jordan in for his defense in the last 9 minutes. And if he gets 2 more fouls, so what? No, Jordan doesn't get that leeway. Guys like Jaylen and Derrick and Payton, they get all the leeway in the world. They're going to play their minutes no matter what, unless something egregious happens. But even then, those guys tend to play their minutes. Walsh, no, you don't get that. You don't get that much leeway at all because you got Josh Minott. Okay, he's basically the same guy. Long, athletic wing. So, yeah, you lose out there. Gonzalez was an option. They went with Baylor Shireman for a while, who was okay. He did okay in his minutes. He's an option. Sam Hauser is, gets minutes in those spots. There are plenty of wings. That wing rotation is so fluid where Jordan was getting DNPs and Josh was starting. Then Josh got DNPs and Jordan was starting. And the season started with Sam starting. And who knows, maybe Baylor Shireman will start at some point. I have no idea what's going to happen. Guys like Jordan Walsh do not get that opportunity. You do not get to be comfortable. You do not get to be sloppy. You do not get to be anything but really good at what you're doing. And that's unfair. That is very unfair. But guys like Jordan Walsh have zero opportunity to play through a bad stretch. No, you're the guy that needs to come in and play his best all the time. Because if you don't, there's 3 other guys sitting on that bench ready to come in and try to do that. And if one of those guys doesn't do it, they'll just go to the next one and just cycle through. And maybe Jordan Walsh starts the next game. Maybe he doesn't. We don't know. The way this season has gone, every time somebody makes, strings a few games together, and we in the media start to say like, oh, okay, well, this is Jordan Walsh's opportunity, or that goes away. And this is Josh Minott's opportunity. Well, that went away. And here's Baylor Shireman stringing a few games together. That goes away. Who knows? Xavier Tillman, talking about losing weight and, all that stuff in the preseason, and it starts to look good. And he hit that game-winning shot at the end of the preseason. I guess it was Toronto. And then nothing. He's not in the rotation. Who knows? There are a few guys that have their opportunity, and then there's a bunch of guys that you can call it depth, but what it really is a bunch of guys who are equally good in maybe a few different ways, but equally good, that are all competing for the same few minutes a game. And so, is it fair to Jordan Walsh? I don't know what's going to happen next. But no, it's not fair. It's not fair to Josh. It's not fair to Baylor. It's not fair to anybody, because sports isn't fair. It's not fair all the time. So I'm fascinated now to see what happens on Friday. Maybe nothing changes. It's entirely possible that nothing changes at all. It's entirely possible that Jordan gets a DNP and they go in a different direction. Who knows? Who knows? We'll have to wait and see, but that's their lot in life. So it's just wild. It's wild because we just got the Jaylen sits next to Jordan on the plane, and Jaylen vouched for Jordan, and now Jordan's got the opportunity. Jaylen went and said, I'm going to go talk to Joe Mazzulla, and that starts this whole new thing. And then that very next game where everybody has that nice storyline of Jaylen and Jordan sitting next to each other on the plane and all of that other stuff. The very next game, he plays 11 minutes and doesn't play in the second half, or barely plays in the second half. And Joe goes in a completely different direction. That's how the season is going. As soon as you think you've got a storyline down, it changes drastically, especially at that part of the bench. So who knows? I'll be back here tomorrow this is the Wednesday show. So you got 2 more shows for me, the Thursday, Friday show. No bonus podcast on Friday after the game because I'll be away. So we'll not be able to do that. I'll have to catch up on the game. But I will be back next week for your regular Monday through Friday, and then bonus podcasts after they play. So make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts. Watch the show on YouTube. The show's free. It's available everywhere. Get into the comment section on YouTube to share your thoughts with me. And also, I'd love it if you shared the podcast. Tell everybody they should be listening to and watching the Locked On Celtics podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.